Hi everyone, this is Busy Bee Esther, and I wanted to share with you my celery juice routine. In this video, you'll find out about buying it, cleaning it, juicing it, and I also give some tips on consuming it as well as the taste. So I hope you enjoy. Buying celery. So there's the issue of buying organic versus conventional celery. For me, I really wanted to buy conventional because it was cheaper, but obviously organic would be better for having less chemicals and things like that. Anthony William, the medical medium, who I refer to as AW or MM a lot in my blog, he recommends that you buy organic when you can, because organic produce has certain standards it has to meet for it to be labeled organic. The USDA.gov site states that under federal guidelines, there are many factors that are involved in labeling food organic. Organic producers need to rely on natural substances without the use of synthetic chemicals, such as fertilizers and pesticides. Certified organic produce should have been grown in soil that has been free of synthetic fertilizers for 3 years. Then it can be labeled organic as far as the USDA guidelines. On my blog, I've also linked the site to the USDA.gov site if you're interested in finding out more about that. Even if you do buy organic, you still need to wash and clean all of your organic foods, because an organic farm might have a conventional farm, down the street from it, and the chemicals and fertilizers can travel with the wind. And so you're not always getting 100% chemical-free things because of the wind and the environment and all that kind of stuff. And even just the chemicals and the rain and stuff can sometimes go on all that. You also need to wash it because of, obviously, dirt. Celery can get pretty gritty and dirty, so you definitely want to wash it still. As far as finding organic celery, that has been an issue for me. And I was trying to do it for a couple of months. I sold out in my several grocers around me, so it was just really difficult to find. And then, of course, going on to the cost. Obviously, organic costs more than conventional because the synthetic chemicals do help grow it better, I guess. It's a little harder to do organic growing, so they tend to be a lot pricier. The organic celery was just about 3 times as more as my conventional celery when I buy it. Then, of course, there is the issue of cost. Now, before I get into the cost of organic versus conventional and different things, there's a little bit of definitions we should review. So a bunch of celery is when you buy the one bag of like a Dole celery bunch, it includes all the outer ribs or celery stalks. And those are a little bitter because they're more green and they do taste much more bitter. Celery hearts are when the outer ribs are taken off, or ribs or stalks. And that's it's a little lighter in color and it's not as bitter. So when I buy organic celery, a lot of times they're in bags labeled celery hearts. And it usually comes with 2 smaller celery hearts with the tops chopped off. So a bag of 2 celery hearts only yielded about 16 ounces of celery juice for me, when about a bag and maybe 1/3 of another bunch, so a bag for conventional celery would be a whole bunch. So a bag and a half, sometimes 1/4 of that would yield 32 ounces for me. So that alone, just with that breakdown, you get much more from the conventional celery. Yes, it's a little more bitter, but the greener stalks, I think, have more chlorophyll and things, which could be more beneficial, but the celery juice in general is very beneficial. So the cost of the 2 organic celery hearts was close to $3 per bag. And then when I would buy one bunch of the conventional celery, it was about $1, sometimes $1.19. Now with the pandemic, prices have gone up from that. So the celery hearts, the biggest I've seen them, were about $5 a piece, and my conventional celery bunches are now at $1.40. So again, it's much more cost effective and for budget friendly to get the conventional celery, especially with drinking 32 ounces a day. I do make sure I clean it very well, so I'm not as worried about that, but it is just something to consider. I buy about 12 to 14 celery bunches a week, and that will last me through until the following week when I go to the market again. Now on to how I clean the celery. So I take about 6 bunches at a time. I'll remove all the plastic and I'll cut off the top and bottom of the celery. And then I will throw it in a bin. It's about a 2-gallon bin, just like a wash bin that you buy at the grocery store or Walmart. And you'll put it in with lukewarm water. It doesn't have to be, I don't really pay attention to how warm or cold it is, but I don't make it freezing cold. I don't make it super hot. And I put a squirt of 7th generation plant-based soap in it. So it does get very foamy and bubbly, and I'll let the celery juice soak for anywhere between 10 to a couple of hours. The only time I let it soak for a couple hours if on the weekend I have something to do, and I might go out to the movies or something and then come back and do the rest of the cleaning. Most of the time it's like 10 to 20 minutes. So after it soaks, I'll dump the bin out, I'll clean it all, and then I rub my thumbs through the center of the stalk. And Medical Medium says that's the best way to clean the celery. And he doesn't mention this, but I've also studied some yoga, and if you know anything about chakras and energy, you actually have a lot of chakras in your hands. So I think it has something to do with that on why it's so beneficial for cleaning celery that way. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it just makes sense. He also mentions a lot about how produce and fruit can kind of attune to your energy if you leave it on your counter or if you have it around for a little bit. It'll attune to your energy and give you exactly what you need to heal. So as far as that, I also think rubbing your hands through each celery stalk just kind of helps it attune to you. You can also hold an orange and things like that, and that'll kind of do the same thing, which is really, really cool, I think. I'm also going to be posting another video about my celery juice routine and cleaning it, so you'll see step-by-step me going through the process of doing all that. And I also have an ASMR one, a version of that as well. So look for those in the near future. When I first started making celery juice and learning about Medical Medium in August 2020, I tried to make celery juice a couple of times with my NutriBullet. Now my NutriBullet was great for me. I was making protein shakes with it, and I blended oats and peanut butter, and it was working great. The NutriBullet just wasn't cutting it for the celery juice. So I tried to make it, it just wasn't getting everything. I had to add water to it, but then I saw a post from Medical Medium that said that if you add water to your celery juice, it destroys the celery juice and it doesn't let it do its job it's supposed to do. So I decided to invest in the juicer that he recommended, which is the Omega 900 HDS or something like that. I'll link it below in the description. But this celery juicer is really awesome. And granted, I've never had a juicer before that. I've only ever had my NutriBullet. But I decided to make the investment because I'm making the investment in myself and my health. And I've had it now the entire time. I've been doing Medical Medium for 1.5 years now, and I haven't had any issues with it. It's been working great. So yeah, and that was a pretty big purchase for me. I'm not the kind of person to just kind of throw my money into something like that, but I decided that if I'm gonna do the 369 cleanses where I'm juicing every day, I wanted to make that investment because the NutriBullet was just such a pain to get it to work at all. I try to juice it fresh each morning because Medical Medium does say that if you have the celery juice juiced fresh, that's when it's the most potent. Every hour you let it sit, it loses its potency, and he recommends that you don't drink it after 24 hours. If you do have to juice your celery ahead of time, like the previous day, and then you drink it the next day, he recommends that you put it in a mason jar with a tight lid that seals so it doesn't lose its potency and oxidates and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times during the week, I will actually juice my celery at night. And then the next morning, I just have to throw it in my bag, and then I will sip it through actually second and third period a little bit. On the weekends, I always juice my celery juice fresh in the morning. Sometimes it's a couple hours before I actually get to it, but I do always juice it fresh in the morning. And then also during the work week, a lot of times I will wake up a little earlier and make my celery juice fresh. It does take me 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how tired I am or what's going on with my celery or my juicer, for how long that takes. So cleaning up after I juice my celery. A lot of times during the week, I will just rinse off the different parts of my juicer because I use my juicer every day. Now with celery, there is mineral deposit that tends to get on there, and sometimes it turns a little brown. I'm not super particular about having things sparkly clean every single second. So for me, because I'm busy, I go to work every day, I'm tired, sometimes that's what happens. And that'll only take me 2 to 3 minutes. You know, I juice everything, it takes me about 10 minutes, and then 2 to 3 minutes, quick rinse, let it sit in the drying rack. It's ready for me the next evening to juice my celery again. Another thing that I do at least once a week, sometimes a couple times a week, I will thoroughly scrub it with a sponge and different tools. The celery juicer actually comes with a scrub brush that you can get into all of the little metal parts that have the holes. That's like where the main juice comes out. So I'll use that every day when I rinse it to get all the little nooks and crannies. But I'll also use that when I scrub it because it's easier to kind of get into the tubes of the different parts. And that'll take me about 10 minutes to thoroughly clean with sponges and the brush. And I have a couple other things that I kind of use at different times to try and get the best clean that I can. And other times I just throw it in the dishwasher. So Omega juicers, they tell you that you should be washing it on the top rack of your washer. So I'll put everything in there and I'll run it through the washer. But of course, washing it by hand is the best way to get all the little nooks and crannies and all those little mineral deposits off because they do tend to stick on there pretty well. I've also noticed too that if I juice other things like cucumbers and apples when I'm doing the liver cleanses, because on the 9th day there's always cucumber apple juice, that'll kind of take away those mineral deposits too. So that helps. So how long does all of this take to clean all of my celery and everything? It actually takes me about 9 to 10 minutes to clean all of the celery stalks of about 6 to 7 bunches of celery. So this is after I've soaked it, I've dumped it out of the bin. That'll take about 6 to 10 minutes, and I'll just let it dry in a little drying rack that I have on the side of my sink. To let it dry, I'll let it sit for maybe 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes a couple hours, sometimes overnight. It depends on what's going on and how busy I am. And then it takes about 10 minutes or so to run the celery stalks through the juicer. Again, it takes about 1 bunch and a quarter to a half of another bunch to get about 32 ounces of celery. And this is with the Omega juicer that I have, and it is a slow cold press juicer. So it doesn't, you know, I'm not just throwing it all in and it's whoop, 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 it's done. It's not that. So it's pretty slow. It does take some time. You know, I'll listen to a podcast while I'm doing that, you know, different things. But it tastes, in my opinion, it does taste better that way because I have gotten juice from a juice bar and they use the quick juicer and it just is a little more bitter with the quick juicer. So that'll take a good 10 minutes to run it through. If I am just rinsing my juicer afterwards, that'll take another 2 minutes. And then if I am thoroughly cleaning my juicer with a rag and soap and all that good stuff, that'll take another 10 minutes. So again, it varies. You know, during the week, I'll just rinse my juicer real quick because I use it every day. And then at least once a week, I'll thoroughly wash it either in the dishwasher or with a sponge and soap and kind of scrub all the mineral salts and things like that off of it. So that is about how long it takes me to do those things. All right, so some tips on consuming celery juice. If you've never consumed celery juice before and your body ever has had any difficulty with digestion or diarrhea or constipation, then you might want to take it slow with celery juice at first. Medical medium recommends starting with maybe 4 ounces at first and working your way up to 16 ounces. If you can get up to 16 ounces a day, that is the most beneficial. And then, of course, 32 ounces is even better. But you have to work your way up to that. So especially if you've ever had diarrhea before, you will have a pretty intense reaction from the celery juice. It is not the celery juice causing the reaction. It's the celery juice moving all of the rancid proteins and other fats that are stuck into your intestinal lining. And the celery juice just helps your body digest it better. So you could say the celery juice kind of causes it, but it's really the fats and proteins that have been stuck inside of your body for years sometimes, maybe months, and the celery juice is just helping it move along. Once you kind of clean up your diet more and get rid of those things and get your immune system running smoothly, then the celery juice does not have as an intense effect on your digestive system. So it's just something to consider, especially if you eat dairy. For me, dairy is a big one. You know, if I do cheat a little bit, I just try to start with 16 ounces and I sip it, and then I'll build myself back up again. So it does take some time to build yourself up to that 32 ounces of celery a day. All about the taste. So celery juice tastes like celery. Pretty simple. It smells like celery. It's very fragrant. I've never actually realized how fragrant celery was until I started juicing it and making it. Especially cleaning it and kind of keeping it on my counter a little bit before I put it away. It kind of fills the room, and it isn't, medical medium calls it an herb. So that makes a lot of sense because it's very fragrant. A lot of times in school when I'm drinking my celery juice, I'll, unscrew the lid and then I'll drink a little bit and the kids are like, it smells like celery. And I'm like, because I'm drinking celery juice, and they ask me about it and we talk a little bit. So celery juice, it's not the best thing. Like, I definitely would rather have a banana blueberry smoothie over celery juice, but the celery juice, I start missing it when I don't have it a little bit. So for example, if I go on vacation for a week, I'm wanting to get back in my celery juice routine because it just makes me feel so good, and it helps my digestion, and it helps my stomach feel pretty flat. Like, it gets rid of bloating and all that kind of stuff. It helps with my just feeling good. Like, I have allergies and stuff, and I've actually, this season so far, I haven't really taken a lot of allergy medicine because I've been cleaning things up. Not just celery juice, mind you, but the celery juice is an integral part of all the cleanses. So it's a really powerful medicine is what medical medium calls it. And when you invest in yourself and buy, a $300 juicer, you're investing in a medicinal machine, which is really cool. And so on the color too, I was telling you earlier about the difference between a bunch and a heart of celery. So the bunches have those more bitter, greener stalks on the outside, and it definitely tastes different. So the more bitter and green the stalk is, and also the more thin the stalk is, I've noticed. So if you buy a bunch, and you can't always tell what you're going to get from the bunches you buy because the inside is kind of different, but the outside, look for a thicker stalk, like a wider stalk, because those are the ones that are a little less bitter. The thinner, greener stalks are very bitter. And again, it has more chlorophyll, so it might be more beneficial. But I definitely prefer to have the less green stalks because it just tastes a little bit better. Another tip for bitterness is to rip off the leaves because the leaves will also make it bitter. I will also post a couple of videos about washing and prepping celery, and I also have an ASMR cooking video for that as well if you're interested, so check those out. And of course, if you've liked my video, please feel free to like and subscribe. And I've also made a blog with all of this information as well if you prefer to read through it or print it out for reference, things like that. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.